Hello everyone. Today we move on to another session of Common Course A01 Transactions. I'm Pratibha and today we'll be going through phrasal verbs. So phrasal verbs come under the module vocabulary. What do you mean by vocabulary? Vocabulary refers to the knowledge a person has in the number of words of a language. How many new words you know in a language determines your vocabulary. So vocabulary is very important as far as language is concerned. As Wilkins says, without grammar, very little can be conveyed. Without vocabulary, nothing can be conveyed. So it is very evident from that quotation itself. That is, if you don't know any words in a language, or if you know just a few words in a language, communication cannot happen. But if you know some words, but you're not perfect in grammar, at least some form of communication can happen, right? So vocabulary is very important. Your competence in a language is determined, your fluency in a language is determined by your knowledge of the vocabulary in that language. And it also helps you become more confident in that language. So now first let's look at what phrasal verbs mean. Phrasal verbs, phrase means a group of words. Phrasal verbs means a group of words which contain a verb in them, some action. Okay. So the speciality of phrasal verbs is that, or what makes phrasal verbs a bit confusing is that when it comes as a group of words, as a phrasal verb, the meaning of this verb will be different from its base meaning. The verb might have a meaning, but when it comes as a phrasal verb along with other phrases, its meaning changes. So that is why it is very important that we should understand what each phrasal verb means. So phrasal verbs usually contain verb plus particle. Particle can either be an adverb or a preposition, or both adverb and preposition. This will be clear to you through these examples. First example is put off. It's a phrasal verb which means postpone. When I want to postpone something, I'll say I have put off the meeting for tomorrow. Okay, postponed. So here you can see put is the verb, action, and off is the, what is the particle, what you call off is adverb. Okay, so verb plus adverb. Another example is get on, another phrasal verb. Get on means continue something or manage something very successfully, make some progress. This is an example of verb plus preposition. Get verb plus on, which is a preposition. So we saw example for verb plus adverb, verb plus preposition. Now the third phrasal verb is verb plus adverb plus preposition. Example is put up with, which means to tolerate. When you tolerate something, you can say put up with. I'm trying to put up with her behavior. Okay, so you're trying to tolerate. Now here you can see a verb there, verb is there, adverb is there, up, and a preposition with. Okay, so I hope now phrasal verbs is clear. Verb plus particle can either be an adverb, preposition, or both. So next we'll look at a few examples. I'll give you a few sentences. Your work is that I hope you're ready with a notebook there. So once you see the sentence, please identify the phrasal verb in that sentence. Okay? Identify the phrasal verb and then write the phrase. You don't have to write the whole sentence. You just identify the phrasal verb, write the phrasal verb, and put a dash, and then you can write the meaning of that phrasal verb. If you know, you can write the meaning. Or this is what you should try to do always. If you don't know the meaning of that phrasal verb, you should try to guess its meaning from the context. That is, depending on the if you read the other words in the sentence, you will understand. Okay, what is the context? So, depending on that context, try to guess the meaning. So, shall we look at the first sentence? These big bills are eating into my pockets. These big pills are eating into my pockets. I hope you have written the phrasal verb and the meaning. Next sentence. I will put your phone number down for him. I will put your phone number down for him. Write the phrasal verb in that sentence and its meaning. Third sentence. I can't work out this problem. I can't work out this problem. Okay. So hope you have written the phrasal verb you've got 3 phrasal verbs and 3 meanings. Now let's look whether you were right or wrong. Okay. The first sentence, the phrasal verb is eat into. Did you get it right? Okay, eat into. In the sentence, it was eating into, but when it depends, phrasal verb is there, and depending on the sentence, we'll have to make it a sentence or past tense by adding ing or ed, etc. Okay, so the phrasal verb is eat into. Never mind, even if you've written eating into, it is correct. Okay, eat into. And what does it mean? Destroy something gradually. As you can see in the picture there, he's showing his pocket, which is like almost empty. So that it's literally, it means that eating into, that is somebody is destroying, you're becoming more and more poor as the day passes or something like that. Okay, you don't have money to spend much because of the expenses that you have to meet. Now next, put down. Here, it might have been a bit tricky because the phrasal verb is not placed together, the two words. Put your phone number down for him, but the phrasal verb is put down. Okay, so every sentence you can look at that. Where is the verb and how you can place a verb, verb or an article or a preposition along with it. Okay, here especially why this is so is because you have the sentence I'll put down your phone number, I'll put your phone number down for him, right? So phone number is the direct object there. So when you have such sentences where you have an object, sometimes two object especially, one of the direct object will come in between the phrase. That is why put your phone number down. Okay, so your phone number is the direct object and for him is the indirect object there. So that's why it's placed like that. Okay, so it means here in this particular sentence it means to note. I'll note your phone number, but actually it has other meanings like put down the fire, which means stop the fire. Then sometimes we say, I was put down by her words. That is, I was sad, when I heard her angry words. So that is another challenge with regard to phrasal verbs. One phrasal verb can have different meanings. So that is why we must be very careful with phrasal verbs. Now the third sentence. What is the phrasal verb there? Work out. I think it might have been easy for you. Work out. Here it means solve, and of course, sometimes we also refer to work out as physical exercise, right? So I worked out in the gym today, something like that. So there also, please note this. Depending on the tense of the sentence, you might have to change the phrasal verb. For your exam point of view also, you can expect questions where you will be given phrasal verbs in the brackets. You can choose and fill in, but at the same time when you're choosing, depending on the tense of the sentence, you must change it. If it is present tense, that also I think you need to read the sentence, understand whether it's something that happened in the past, something that is in the present or future. Depending on that, you can add ed or ing, or you can add will, something like that. Okay. Now, let's look at the story. Would you be interested in hearing a story while learning phrasal verb? The title of our story is Smitha Had a Problem. What is Smitha's problem? Let's look at her problem. Okay, that is Smitha there. What is she thinking? For a long time, Smitha was toying with the idea of hanging out with a very handsome man called Mithun. Okay, so that is her problem. Now, in this sentence, there are two phrasal verbs. Now, again, get with your notebooks, write down the two phrasal verbs in that sentence. For a long time, Smitha was toying with the idea of hanging out with a very handsome man called Mithun. Two phrasal verbs in that sentence. After you have identified that, you can try to guess its meaning. I hope you're almost done. Shall we look at those phrasal verbs? Okay, before we look at that, we can just see what she's thinking. Okay, so that's maybe she's thinking about Mithun. Okay, let's look at your answers now, whether they're correct or wrong. The first phrasal verb is toy with. Smitha was toying with the idea, right? Toy with. What does that mean? Toy with means to consider or think of an idea or plan. When you're thinking about an idea, you can use instead of always referring phrasal verbs. That is why I said, you become more confident in using a language because it shows your competence in that language. It just always, instead of using these common terms like I am thinking, I'm considering, you can instead say, I am toying with the idea of going for a movie tomorrow. Okay, something like that. So it means to consider or think about an idea or plan. I hope many of you have got it correct. At least you could identify the phrasal verb. Now you can start using it in your conversation also. Yes, moving on to the next phrasal verb. Hang out. What does hang out mean? Hang out means to spend a lot of time together. Okay, so what was her idea of hanging out with a handsome man called Mithun. So I want to hang out with my friends. So something that we usually use, right? Means to spend a long time together. Okay, now let's see how her story is progressing. Yes, and then one day he turned up at her door, which is a phrasal verb there. Note down the phrasal verb. And then one day he turned up at her door. Write the phrasal verb, its meaning. Yes, turn up means to arrive or happen unexpectedly, or it can also sometimes, in this context, that's the meaning. He arrived unexpectedly at her door, at her home. Okay, and it also sometimes means to increase the volume. Like we say, could you please turn up the volume of that television? Okay, so all these things you can say, but here this is the meaning. Okay, let's continue. Turned up at her door. Mithun took his coat off and sat down. Mithun took his coat off and sat down, which is the phrasal verb there. Write its meaning. Take off, which means remove or move quickly. Here it means remove. He removed his coat. So instead of always using remove, we can just say take off, right? Especially in informal language rather than formal language. But you also might have seen this phrase when we mentioned about aeroplanes taking off, right? So that also is another meaning of this phrasal verb. Move quickly. She took off suddenly, right? When somebody leaves from a group immediate suddenly, you can say that. So that has two meanings. Now let's look at the next part of this story. Seeing this, she could not figure out anything. She didn't understand what was happening. Mithun is coming, sitting in her in the sofa. What's happening? Which is a phrasal verb there? Figure out, which means understand or solve. She could not figure out. She didn't understand what's happening. She was confused. Yeah, I'm not able to figure out this problem, we can say. Then what happened? Then he explained the situation. While driving past her house, his car broke down. It was outside. Okay, so that is why he has come to her house, which is a phrasal verb in that sentence. Note down and its meaning. Break down. His car broke down, right? We always use it when in the context of vehicles that stop working, right? So stop working. Or sometimes we also, it has another meaning, three meanings in fact. One is of course with regard to vehicles breaking down. Then second is when we try to divide something. I'll break down this problem into three. Something like that. We can want to divide it. Okay, or I'll break down this topic into three. Then the third meaning is when somebody is very sad, not just sad, somebody is terribly sad, depressed, and crying down, crying furiously, we can say to break down. She's on the verge of breaking down, right? So unable to control one's feeling. In this context, it means vehicle because it's very clear in this. It has stopped working. So that is a situation. Now, what happened? Suddenly, Smita chipped in with a suggestion, which is a phrasal verb there, and its meaning. Can you find out? Chip in. Chip in means interrupt to say something. So Mithun was going on telling about his problem. So immediately Smita said something. She interrupted him and she had a suggestion. She said that she could easily sort out the problem. Sort out is the phrasal verb there, which means deal with something successfully. Okay, I'll sort out the problem for you. What's the issue? I'll sort it out, we say, right? Deal with something successfully. Sort out, deal with something successfully. Now let's continue the story. She said she could easily sort out the problem because she knew a mechanic whom he could really count on. So which is a phrasal verb in that sentence? You're right, count on, which means to depend or trust. When you can depend someone, when you can trust someone, we say, I can count on him. He's my friend. Okay? Now, she looked up the nearest garage in the phone book to call out the mechanic for him. So what was her next step? She looked up the nearest garage in the phone book to call out the mechanic for him, which is a phrasal verb. There are two phrasal verbs in that sentence. Please note them down and guess their meaning from the context. I hope you have done it. Shall we look at those phrasal verbs now? Yes. Looked up, look up, which means to find out. Looked up, found out. She found out the nearest garage in the phone book, and she's next phrasal verb is call out, which means telephone for service. Okay, when you want to telephone for service, especially service purposes, we say, I call out the plumber, I call out the mechanic, like that. Okay, so those are the two phrasal verbs in that sentence. Moving on with the story. Meanwhile, she offered him a cup of tea and dished out some snacks. Please note down the phrasal verb in this sentence. Meanwhile, she offered him a cup of tea and dished out some snacks. Yes, the phrasal verb there is dish out, which means to distribute or serve. When you are serving something, you can say, especially food, we say dish out. Because with reference to food, we already have that dishes, right? Whatever we prepare, we call them the dishes. So it's more relevant. Dish out means to serve, but it's again used in other contexts apart from food, like we say dish out the flyer and things like that. Okay, he accepted, but then she realized there was no milk. We have run out of milk, she said, and went out to buy milk. So she had offered him tea, but then has run out of milk, so she needs to buy it. So she leaves for the shop. I hope you have noted down the phrasal verb in that sentence. You're right, it is ran out. We have run out of milk because it's in the present tense, but phrasal verb is ran out, which means, or run out, which means used up or exhausted completely. It was there, but now it is over. Okay, so that is ran out. I ran out of my stationery. I was away. The mechanic turned up. He got along with mending the car while Mithun watched. In the first sentence, there was a phrasal verb which we have already seen, turn up, right? We've seen in the first part, turned up, Mithun arrived unexpectedly. Now in the second sentence, which is a phrasal verb there, he got along with mending the car while Mithun watched. Yes, get along, which means to deal successfully. Here it means that, but it also means when I can get along with somebody because he's my friend. I can say, I get along with him very well, right? So those are the two meanings of the phrasal verb get along. When it was over, Mithun got away in his car without waiting for Smitha. Okay, which is the phrasal verb there? Is get away, which means actually to escape, or sometimes it can also refer to your plans on having a vacation. I want to get away to New Zealand, okay, so which also means to have a holiday. In this case, it is escape or go away without telling Smitha or waiting for her to return. Continue with the story. In the shop, she suddenly remembered that her little baby sister, who she was looking after, was at home, which is a phrasal verb there. Yes, look after, which means take care of. I look after my parents well. I will look after my sister, okay, which means to take care of. She ran back to the house and saw that Mithun had left. Her little sister was crying inside. So immediately she ran back home, and what did she find there? Mithun is not to be seen anywhere, right? He has just left because his work is done. And her baby sister, poor baby sister, is crying inside. Okay? So that is our story. I know it has been an anticlimax, but still, I hope you've learned a few of the phrasal verbs from this story. So next, can we move on to a few exercises? This is exercise 1. You've been given a few phrasal verbs that you have already seen, and 3 of them which are new to you, and the meanings on this side. So what you can do now is again Take your notebook. You don't have to write down the whole thing. Later on, you can note it down. But for now, you just write one, whichever number, A, B, C, D, like that, your answer there. And then we'll see whether it is correct or not. Okay? So, some of the phrasal verbs, you can start now. Some of the phrasal verbs I know are new to you, but when you come across such phrasal verbs, even for this exam also you can expect such questions. Match the following type, where you will be given phrasal verbs on one side and you will be required to match it. Okay? So what you can do is, in case a few of the phrasal verbs are new to you, you can first attempt those phrasal verbs which you know for sure, which you're confident about, and then after that you can kind of like wise guess elimination, right? You can, whatever is remaining, you can guess from the context or from the words themselves. You can try to guess their meaning and mark them. But please don't go for blind or wild guesses. Okay? So I hope you have had a generally you have marked these answers for these phrasal verbs. Shall we look at them one by one then? Hang out. We've already seen that. What does it mean? To spend a lot of time in a place. Got it correct? Okay. Next phrasal verb is new to us. So as I told you earlier, in this class we have not discussed. So we'll just skip that for the time being and move on to the next phrasal verb, which we'll first finish the ones that we have already covered in this session and then take up the new phrasal verbs one by one. Okay. So beef up is new to you. Chip in, we have already seen. Which is the answer? Come on, chip in. Yes, to add or contribute something. N is the correct answer. Hope many of you got it right too. Next, count on. Count on. Yes, to depend or trust. Dish out. To distribute or serve. Good. Figure out. Understand or calculate something. Okay. Next, get away. Escape from a place or have a holiday. Good. Toy with. Toy with. Yes. To consider an idea or a plan. Look after. Take care of. Put up with. As we saw it when we discussed the first example of phrasal verbs definition. Put up with. To tolerate. Good. Sort out. What does sort out mean? Sort out. To order or tidy something or deal with an issue successfully. Yes, correct. Tell off is new to you. So let's just skip that again. Turn down. Turn down. Have we seen that? Again, I think it's new to you. Turn up. Yes, we've seen turn up. What does turn up mean? To be found, especially by chance or somebody is arriving unexpectedly. Correct. Wind up. Wind up is new to you, but then we are left with 1, 2, 3, 4 new phrasal verbs. So from whatever is remaining, can we make a wise guess by elimination? Wind up. I think that's quite familiar to most of you. You already use it a lot, right? Yes, that's a phrasal verb which means to conclude something. Let's wind up the meeting at 3 o'clock. Okay? Next, which is the next phrasal verb, beef up. Let's begin from the first. Beef up, to make something bigger or better. Beef up, maybe the word there, up itself means. Or maybe you can think of the buffalo, which is so fat and chubby, right? So you can connect it to when you want to make something bigger, you say beef up, okay? Or better, okay? Increase the volume or whatever. To make something bigger or better. Next phrasal verb is tell off. This is not very commonly used, but it refers to scolding. When somebody gets angry, ill, told off, also we use tell off, which means scold. Turn down, again, you might be familiar with it, and we are only left with one more option here, reject. Down, there again you can guess from the context. That is, something is turned, she turned down the offer. Okay, so there again the object comes between in certain sentences. So I hope many of you got it correct. Congrats to those who could get at least a few of them correct. Okay. Next exercise 2. Here we have been given a certain sentences and you have to fill them with the phrasal verbs that we have already seen. Okay. Earlier I gave you a few phrasal verbs in exercise 1. Now we can fill these sentences with those phrasal verbs again. Okay. So we are hoping to dash for a few days at Easter. Can you recollect? Vacation? Correct. Get away. We are hoping to get away for a few days at Easter. We can't dash this warm weather to last. To last means to remain for some time. This warm weather will not, we can't, it's negative, right? So, what can be the probable option? We cannot trust. So, which will be the phrasal verb? Count on. We can't count on this warm weather to last. They are taking on more workers to dash production. Of course, more workers means it is to increase production. So which is the phrasal verb that we have learned to increase? Yes, beef up, correct. The local kids are dash at the mall. The local kids dash at the mall. Of course, when you're in the mall, what would be? It would be something positive, very enjoyable, right? And so you want to spend a lot of time there. The local kids hung out at the mall. Okay, so here again, they are in the process of and again, as I told you, depending on the sentence, you might have to change the tense of the phrasal verb also. So here it is just the local kids dash. If are was already there, we could use the local kids are hanging out because it's something that's going. Here it's not given, so we expect that it is already verb. Okay, from the sentence. You should not add new verbs or words to it. Okay, the phrasal you have to make changes to the phrasal verb as such depending on the tense of the sentence. So here, since are is not there, we cannot use hanging out because we already know that it's not going on. So instead, we make change in the phrasal verb and we say out. Students dash leaflets to passers-by. Distribute. Dished out. Again, see? Dish, the verb is not there. It shows that it is going on. It is so we assume that it is already past, some past action. So we make the changes, necessary changes in the phrasal verb. So dish out becomes dished out. I'm not going to dash their smoking any longer. Of course, I'm not going to tolerate their smoking any longer. I'm not going to put up with their sentence. If you can wait a moment, I will dash all for you. So if you can wait, I'll do something, right? I will manage the situation, sort it out all for you. If we all agree, let's dash the discussion. Conclude, wind up the discussion. If everyone dash, we'll be able to buy her a really nice present. If everyone contributes, so what will be the phrasal verb there? Chips in, we'll be able to buy her a really nice present. So see, chip in again, depending on the tense of the sentence, everybody is yet to give. That's not a past action. So everybody chips in. S is added. I dashed the boys dash for making so much noise. Obviously, I'm very angry, so I have scolded them. I told the boys off for making so much noise. Some past action. I briefly dashed the idea of living in France last year. So if you're considering an idea and it's a past idea, so what will you give there as answer? I briefly toyed with the idea of living in France last year. He asked her to marry him, but she dash him dash. Again, a negative connotation there. So it was rejected. So what is a phrasal verb there? He asked her to marry him, but she turned him down. Have you dashed how much the trip will cost? Calculated. Have you figured out how much the trip will cost? Don't worry about me. I can dash myself. I can take care of myself. Don't worry about me. I can look after myself. As the riot police approached, the crowd dashed with slogans. The crowd turned out or approached or arrived with slogans. Hope you got an idea now about all these phrasal verbs, their meanings, and the different contexts in which you use them. Okay, this is a link that I would like to share with you. I'll also copy paste this link in the comment box below. So I would like you to visit these two links. The first link is a link wherein you get an idea about how phrasal verbs are used in different situations. Okay, especially when it comes to transitive, intransitive verbs. That is, transitive verbs referring to verbs that have an object. Okay, that are followed by an object, but some verbs don't require an object. So in such situations, how you rephrase, so how you use the phrasal verbs, you will get an idea if you visit this first link. Now the second link, I know you're all now very enthusiastic about phrasal verbs and want to test yourself more. So for those language enthusiasts, I've given the second link where you can just take up a fast, quick quiz. Okay. So my earnest request to each of you is don't give up. It might appear a bit complex, but it is very interesting. Language is very interesting to learn, so don't give up. And what does the phrasal verb mean? Give up means to lose hope, but I don't want you to lose hope at all. So congratulations to each one of you for successfully completing this session, and you deserve a sweet pat on the back. And pat on the back, by the way, is a phrasal verb to denote congrats. Okay? So see you again. Way to go, girls. Bye.